Good morning, Brownsville. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're watching this feed. If this is your first time here, welcome. My name is Frankie Olivo. Our program focuses on the very important issues that are affecting our local community. We have shed light on injustices and we have allowed for our platform, this mic, to be that of the voice of the people. Now, if this is something that you can see yourself supporting, we ask that you like, comment, and share this live feed. Currently, right now, we are being streamed on X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, and on YouTube. As of late, our Facebook page is at risk of being taken down. The powers that be do not want you, the constituent, the voter, to know the truth. But remember, fam, we will not be silenced. Now, if you're really about the cause and you want to stand up to corruption and you want to hold our elected leaders accountable, well, we ask that you subscribe to our social media platforms. We could be found on X, formerly known as Twitter, and on Facebook under Frankie Olivo. We also ask that you follow our personal page on Facebook, Olivo Frankie. More importantly, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel titled Frankie Olivo TV. Remember, Brownsville, I will never ever ask you for money. I will never ever ask you for food. Well, depends what you're making. All I ask of my community is to be down with the cause. A simple subscription on YouTube, on our page, Frankie Olivo TV, will help us down the road. Remember, Good Morning Brownsville will come on Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. religiously. So make sure you subscribe to Frankie Olivo TV on YouTube to tune in. We will not be silenced. And always remember, Brownsville, I am forever grateful to each and every one of you for the time and attention that you provide our platform. Thank you so much for that. How we doing, chat? How we doing? Happy hump day. Happy hump day. Happy Wednesday. One day closer to Friday. Interesting developments that have been happening as of late. We did just post something very, very interesting. We have been holding off on this story because we wanted to confirm exactly what we were dealing with. And now it seems as if we have a better idea of what's been transpiring as of late at BISD. If you haven't seen already, we just posted breaking news. We just posted that. Let me share it. BSD administrators were recently suspended due to them having sexual intercourse on district property on district time. At the time of this publication, documents have not been released regarding the employees being placed on leave. Good Morning Brownsville will provide them once they become available. Sources say multiple participants have been identified. The investigation continues. Again, we have been following this story since last week. We were hesitant to post because we always wait until we know without a doubt that the information that we've been fed is in fact accurate. We will be waiting for those documents to be given to us. We have a good idea of, I guess, the participants, of those people involved. This is bigger than what I thought. This is something that that is going to shock a lot of people. And it's interesting because when this information was presented to me, I thought, this is something that no calls, Chingo. This is information that we were shocked to hear about this, but like anything, people, this is something. I hate to sound ugly, but this is something normal. This is something that happens more than we think. The school district, it's It is one of the largest employers south of South Texas, if I'm not mistaken. It has close to 6,000 employees. And this is nothing new. I hate to say that this is possibly a norm. But the interesting thing was, this is more of a moral issue. I thought when I first was presenting the information, I heard from two different people. This is what's going on. You may want to look at this. This is the chatter going on. Let me know what you find out. This is on Friday. This past Friday, I was in Hidalgo County visiting a client. I get a call or I get a text message late Friday evening saying, hey, there's this individual. You may want to look into that. So little by little, information has been trickling in. And the only thing that I could confirm at the time of our posts on Friday, if you followed Friday's post, if you haven't, make sure you go to our page. The only thing that we can verify was that there was administrators that were suspended. We weren't aware of the reasons why they were suspended, but we had an idea. And now it's apparent that this is the case. Now, I was hesitant to report on this because, again, this is, this happens more than we think. But the issue was that, according to sources, that this relationship was more than just professional. This relationship was of lovers. The interesting that happened was that it happened on school grounds during school hours. That is the reason why it is news. Whatever people do at home, whatever people do on their free time, they're adults. As long as it's consent given by both parties, who are we to judge? The interesting thing moving forward is that my sources say that there's multiple participants. They describe this as a blank fest. Individuals were having intercourse, or one individual was having intercourse with multiple partners at the district. Again, as long as they're consenting adults. But if we already confirmed that administrators were placed on leave, were suspended, that leads me to believe that they're looking at other people. I have names, but it's very difficult. Me being a male, it looks bad whenever we talk about females. And I try my best to avoid that. Again, this program isn't designed to bash people. This program isn't designed to be cheeseman. I want to make that perfectly clear. Everything that we talk about always come with receipts. The thing that we are having trouble with is that whenever we file a Freedom of Information request, the district does its best to protect the image of BISD. Again, we're dealing with a $500 million entity. They just approved their biggest budget in the history of 600 and plus million. So it is the attorney's jobs to make sure that they keep this hush hush as much as possible. Again, going back to what I do, this isn't easy, and I'm not looking for pity, but what I want you to understand is that we bring receipts. Whatever we talk about, we show you factual information. What has transpired as of late is that the school year just started a few weeks ago, less than a month ago. What I want to stress, and again, I just wanted to talk about this for a few minutes because this is coming down the pipeline. And that's the way we operate. We always have stories lined up. Some take more priority precedence than others because of current events, things that happen. The interesting thing about this was that individuals were being investigated back in the previous scholastic year of 2024, the 2024-2025 school year. What is troubling is that these individuals that were recently suspended, at least one of them was recently placed at a different school, Hernandez. One would think that the school district would be hesitant in placing an individual that is under investigation. We would think that it would be wise to let the investigation unfold before we make any moves. One would think, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to avoid instances like this from happening. Again, my job isn't to bash people, ladies and gentlemen. My job is to make sure that those in leadership positions, those entrusted with guiding and molding and instructing our students, are doing things by the book. And when this has ramifications on their school year, their studies, it is a big issue. We can talk about it being, a lover's quarrel. That is what my sources have alluded to, that the reason why this came about was because someone got upset. Someone found out. They thought they were the only ones. So this is going to be big. This is going to be very big. Individuals that were entrusted to be role models. And again, we're all humans. I don't want to sound ugly and to sound heartless. But this is going to get bad because there are multiple participants. There are multiple people that are involved. When I first heard about this, I thought, well, there has to be something to it. If at least 2 individuals were placed on leave, if 2 individuals were suspended. My initial thought was one was a subordinate, one was a department head, one was in charge of the other person. I understand that it is not the district's best interest for these type of relationships to happen. There are many reasons for that. The main reason is that it could cause a toxic work environment. You don't want that. You want the colleagues to fraternize in a professional manner. Once it develops into a more serious relationship, problems start happening. Jealousy is involved. You and I can agree that it's just not a good thing. So That is what is happening at the district. I am waiting until I have documentation because I want to. I know the names. I just want to have documents, because if I have documents, there's nothing people could say. And that's the way we work again. We wait until we have documents to identify those involved. It would be irresponsible on my part to throw them out there. I think based on our posts, people can come to a conclusion of who we're talking about. But again, according to sources, they aren't the only ones. According to sources, there are multiple people. And again, this all goes back and gives the district a bad look. It gives them a bad look because individuals were under investigation, and then they were placed in a leadership position at one of the schools. Why? What is interesting to learn from this, ladies and gentlemen, is you know how this works. BISD is run by politics. Always has, always will. There is no doubt in my mind that that's the way the game is played. Is it to where the superintendent is conservative? He wants to put his foot down and say, hey, this will not be tolerated? Because many things that happen at the district, they get swept under a rug. People are moved to different schools, Hernandez. Everything gets hush-hush. This leads me to believe that this indeed happened, of what we reported. And also, it leads me to confirm that there are multiple participants, that my sources are correct. So just wanted to let you know a little bit of what we're working on. This is going to be a hot topic moving forward. It's something that the school district is going to try to put in the back burner. Unfortunately, they have Good Morning Brownsville to deal with. And again, that's my job, ladies and gentlemen, to keep the community informed of what is going on. I'll try my best to give you the black and the white, the good and the bad. Stay away from the gray area. Whatever you decide to do with that information is totally out of my hands. So be on the lookout, ladies and gentlemen. We will be requesting documents. This was just confirmed to me yesterday, and I was figuring out a way to try and talk about this, but my production team agreed that we should wait until we have the documents in our hands in order for us to speak about this with a little bit more clarity. That way you won't think and say, well, this guy is making things up. We don't. If you're new here to our program, we welcome you. And we want to let you know that we don't run our platform on innuendos, on chismes, on gossip. No. We provide facts. So while we can confirm the reasons why these administrators, these employees at BISD were suspended, we can confirm that we will hesitate and wait until we name the individuals. And I understand that there's families involved. Well, aware of that. But they're adults. They know right from wrong. And anyone would know that they shouldn't be having this relationship on school grounds and on school property. That is a big, big no no. And look, ladies and gentlemen, the school district has been making these past, what are we? September, these past 6 months. We've been in the news, Herrera, for all the wrong reasons. Back in May, who can forget the firestorm? We went live and we spoke to the community and said that Rivera High School was a cesspool, was a breeding ground where coaches, teachers groomed and preyed on students. There was an arrest made. A soccer coach resigned. It was my understanding that that soccer coach went to turn himself in to the jail, only to be turned around and said, hey, we don't have a warrant for you. His guilty conscience led him to call an attorney friend and say, hey, I'm ready to turn myself in. That individual no longer works with the district. I believe he works for UTRGV, if I'm not mistaken. So we had the teachers having relationships with students. There was a teacher arrested from Rivera this past May, 3-4 months ago, 5 months ago. If you didn't follow our story, we encourage you to go to our YouTube channel titled Frankie Olivo TV, where we talk about in detail of the culture at Rivera, of what is happening there, based on victims that have come forward to our platform. We can go back 10, 20 years to where this was something known. We have Rivera. Again, right before school ended, we had a teacher at Pace High School that was arrested for sexual assault. It was alleged that he assaulted a fellow colleague teacher at a nearby park during their lunch hour. And now we have this news that we've been following for a week of administrators having sex on the job. It's troubling, but it doesn't shock me anymore, because at the end of the day, it's BISD, unfortunately. The school district will do its best to make sure that I and our program do not get our hands on those documents. They want to protect their image. We will try our best to provide you that information. So again, we will not be revealing the names of those individuals. But if you go to our page, if you go to our previous posts, you can put 2 and 2 together. Ladies and gentlemen, today, I wanted to talk about something very interesting that has been happening in Austin. Today, I wanted to talk about and ask you the question: is it a good thing to bring prayer back to schools? And that is how we will start today's program. Thank you so much for tuning in, Brownsville.
Senators passed 2 bills related to religion in schools, allowing prayer in public schools and displaying the Ten Commandments in classrooms.
KVU's Daniel Perot is following the chamber. He joins us live from the Capitol now. Daniel.
Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who presides over the Senate, called this a momentous day for religious freedom in the state of Texas. The Senate passed Senate Bill 11 that would allow school boards to designate time during the school day for things like prayers or religious readings. The chamber also giving initial approval to Senate Bill 10 that would require the 10 Commandments be displayed in all K-12 public school classrooms. The text must be clear enough to read for a person with average vision from anywhere in the classroom. That bill was passed by the Senate last session. One difference this time around is that it doesn't require districts to purchase the posters. They can, or they can also be donated. The bill's author, State Senator Phil King, says the text of the Ten Commandments is foundational to American democracy with moral principles that extend beyond a particular religion.
I think it's time for Texas to pass SB 10 to bring back the historical tradition of recognizing our national heritage and to help eliminate out-of-date legal thinking that's still active from the 1970s Establishment Clause jurisprudence, which was recently overturned.
Critics, including State Senator Roland Gutierrez, said that SB 10 violates the U.S. Constitution's Establishment Clause, which prohibits the government from sponsoring or favoring a religion, saying that he fears that it would isolate non-Christian students.
There's 400,000 Hindus in Texas.
But I can tell you, every Hindu parent, I presume, would want their child to see every day: don't steal, lie, don't kill.
I don't presume anything. I'm here to make laws, not make presumptions. Do Sikhs believe that in the Ten Commandments in Texas?
I don't know.
The Senate also initially approved Senate Bill 18 that would ban city and county libraries that host drag queen story hours from getting state or other public funds. The Senate expected to take a final vote on SB 10 tomorrow. Now, the upper chamber has passed bills that are similar to either SB 10 or SB 11 in recent sessions, but they've not been able to make it through the House. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick says with the House Speaker Dustin Burrows in the job now, he's optimistic that this session, those bills would be able to get through the House. At the Texas Capitol, Daniel Perot, KV News.
What has been happening as of late, ladies and gentlemen, has caused a lot of uproar. Many people have stated that there is no place for God, for prayer, for religion in schools. What we have focused on today is how Texas, they will be requiring public schools, public classrooms to display the Ten Commandments under a bill signed by the governor. There are supporters that argue that the Ten Commandments and teachings of religion, Christianity, more generally are core to the history of the United States. And this is a message that has resurged in recent years as part of a broader national movement that considers the idea of church, the separation of church and state, a myth. We wanted to talk about this because this is something that many people have alluded to, the fact that the world, it seems, is getting worse and worse. Now, I don't want to preach to the choir. Again, my job is never to convince you. I hope you realize that. I want you to know that our program is designed in a way to give you everything. What you decide to do with that information is totally out of my hands. We have people on both sides of the spectrum. And this, ladies and gentlemen, could potentially be a very polarizing issue. People say that religion is good, that it helps develop moral character, that we as human beings, we are born to sin, and we're born to be evil, to do evil deeds. But religion, no matter what denomination you are, keeps us in line. Faith-based groups believe in a higher being, believe that there are consequences. Everything that I do, I'll be either rewarded or I'll be punished. There is this idea of a heaven and a hell. Catholics believe in a purgatory. Whatever you believe, I'm sure you have heard of people that are advocates for religion. Maybe this goes all the way back to the time of Moses. That was a time where God saw that man needed law and order. Whatever your religion is, whatever denomination, whatever church you go to, I'm sure you can agree that religion does shape us. It does forces us to think about what we do. And look, we're human beings. We're not perfect. One of the biggest characters in the Bible is David. David is considered as an epic figure, a heroic figure. David was the only one that was willing to challenge the giant, Goliath. Everyone else was scared. They'd rather die. They'd rather run away than die trying, defending their land, defending their tribe. David said, all I need is 3 stones and a slingshot. I believe in God. I'll fight Goliath. And the story of David and Goliath has kind of morphed into a story, more than a story. It symbolizes going up against a greater being. Many people relate that to life, how we are fighting against a Goliath with whatever problem we may have, whether that be in our professional career, in our personal lives, dealing with something very serious with our children, with our spouse. The story of David and Goliath is preached and talked about and saying, hey, be confident, be strong. You will prevail. I know it doesn't look good. I know you might think that I can't. This problem that I have is too big. The story in the Bible shows us how David was a midget compared to Goliath. And he said, I'll stand up to him. I'll fight him. People on the other side of the spectrum, those people who oppose this new law, and again, if I have BISD parents in here, let me know. Give me a thumbs up if you are a BISD parent. Well, if your child goes to any public school, essentially, he could go to IDEA, Jubilee, Athlos, any charter schools. At the end of the day, they are public schools, from my understanding. Give me a thumbs up if your child attends public school in the state of Texas. You may want to ask your child, have you seen the 10 Commandments displayed either in your classroom, in the halls, in the wings, while you're going to other classes? Do you see that anywhere? And I say that because, again, beginning September 1st, There's a Texas law that requires every public school to display these 10 Commandment posters. I was supposed to bring this up yesterday, but I'm busy. I was busy. I got sidetracked. But I want you to ask your child, your grandbaby, if they realize this. Because they're supposed to be displayed. Now, I just spoke to you about the story of David and Goliath, how many people say that, religion is good. Teachings of the Bible could have meaningful impact in one's life. It shapes moral character. It forces us to walk that fine line. While there are people that that support and advocate for this new initiative, for this new law, there are people that believe that this law crosses the line. There are people out there that think that religion is not good. That there should be a separation between church and state, church and education. Toker says religion poisons people. What is interesting to learn from this new initiative, ladies and gentlemen, I want to make the argument that what we have seen in today's society is only going from bad to worse. And I understand what many people might be thinking about. Frankie, it's not the job of the teacher. It's not the job of the principal to teach religion, to teach them about the 10 Commandments. Many people might be atheists. They may not believe in anything. And this is where we could possibly get into the discussion of, isn't it a good thing for people to have hope? I have my beliefs. You have yours. I will never ever criticize somebody for their beliefs. I will do my best to make arguments, to present information, Bible verses, and say, hey, this is what I believe because this is what the Bible says. But there are people out there, and I respect them. I don't want anybody to misconstrue and think, oh, this guy is his way or the highway. No, I respect people. I respect people's beliefs, people's sexual preferences. At the end of the day, I'm not God. I can tell you what the Bible says, but at the end of the day, whatever you believe in, I will respect you. I will love you because you are my brother, you are my sister in this world. Now, I see a good amount of people here today. I want to ask you, when you went to school, do you ever remember a time where you saw so much, what's the word, dysfunction within the youth? I remember hearing from my grandparents and people that said that these, school shootings and fights and things like that, they weren't the norm. In the classroom, for the most part, there was respect. I hate to talk personal about, me personally, but ladies and gentlemen, I went to school. to become a teacher. I graduated with a history, social studies composite, minor in government, thinking that I'm going to be a teacher and a coach. That was my idea for the whole time I was studying. I didn't know anything else. I didn't think of anything else. I said, hey, I enjoy sports. I want to teach it. I want to be a coach. It's funny how life kind of, yeah, you may want this, but no, come over here. What happened with me is that I graduated in May, mid to late May. By mid-June, early to mid-June, I was hired to work for Cameron County. And that just showed me a whole different world, which I'm very thankful for. And what I have heard as of late, these past, 5-10 years, has been that that the teacher position, a teacher's job was becoming unbearable. There is no more respect. I want y'all people here to help me. Was there prayer back when you went to school? Was there respect? Was there some form of, what's the word, dignity given to teachers? Where I remember that I was scared of my teacher. I was scared of my principal. For those people that in the education field that might remember, I don't know if he was a doctor, but Principal Kennison from Perez Elementary. I think that was a time where they were still whipping people, whipping students. I remember of people being spanked by the principal, by the teacher. Maybe you personally who are listening to our program, maybe you remember those times. And many people allude to the fact that ever since they got away with that type of discipline, all hell has broken loose at the schools. We've all seen videos and on YouTube, clips have been viral of students fighting with teachers, physical fights, where they take away their cell phone and it's, give it back to me. I'm sure you've come across a few of them, if you haven't already. What can we say is the reason for that? Why is there no more respect for our instructors? I understand what you're thinking and saying that thank you, Hernandez, that discipline is taught in the household. And I agree with you 1,000%. And I think that's a big misunderstanding that that parents have, that, I'm going to drop off my kid and I expect the teacher and the principal to raise them, to mold them, I would dare argue that it is the parents' job, 75-80% of them instructing discipline, respect, morals, developing a good character at a young age, to where when the child goes into the classroom, he is aware of what's right and wrong. He is aware of having respect for their elders. But many people, correct me if I'm wrong, chat, I'm open for discussion. Many people have stated that ever since that form of discipline, of spanking, of disciplining students, ever since then, the morale, the respect is gone. many people attribute what has happened in Minnesota, what has happened throughout the country, that they don't fear God, that they don't fear a higher being. I understand that this is a very delicate issue, but this is a conversation that needs to be had. Because what happened in Minneapolis, what's happened in Nashville, what happened throughout the country, it seems as if it's not going to stop. So, how do you feel in regards to this issue? Yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, we did post. Yesterday, we did post how Attorney General Ken Paxton, he did encourage schools. Let me blow it up. He did issue a press release, and it states, Attorney General Ken Paxton encourages Texas schools to begin legal process of putting prayer back in the classroom and recommends the Lord's Prayer for students. Attorney General encourages all Texas schools to implement dedicated time for prayer and the reading of scripture following the enactment of Senate Bill 11 on September 1st, 2025. In Texas classrooms, we want the Word of God opened, the 10 Commandments displayed, and prayers lifted up, said Paxton. Twisted radical liberals want to erase truth, dismantle the solid foundation that America's success and strength were built upon, and erode the more fabric of our society. Our nation was founded on the rock of biblical truth, and I will not stand while the far left attempts to push our country into the sinking sand. Texas Senate Bill 11, passed by the Texas legislature this past regular session, allows school boards to adopt policies setting aside time for voluntary prayer and reading of the Bible or other religious texts. The law requires that the Board of Trustees for each ISD in Texas take a record vote on whether to adopt a policy to implement these periods no later than 6 months after September the 1st, 2025. Student participation in these periods require parental consent. The bill directs the Office of the Attorney General to defend any school district or charter school that adopts such policy. In addition, the Attorney General is empowered to recommend best practices for implementation. For Texas students considering how to best utilize this time, Attorney General Paxton encourages children to begin with the Lord's Prayer as taught by Jesus Christ. Matthew 6, verses 9 through 13. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us for our debts. Forgive our debtors, and lead us into temptation, not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. The school board here at the city, the Brownsville Independent School Board, this just met yesterday. The state is giving each school district 6 months in order for them to implement this into to adopt this policy. It is interesting to learn of people that spoke about this, that commented about this. Again, we all have our differences and opinions, right? This is what people were commenting on the post yesterday. Garza says, I think meditation is good, whether the child wants to pray or just work on themselves. It should be incorporated in schools. Should work a bit for mental health. A moment of silence. Amen. Suggest the one who's broken a few commandments. They should work on keeping weapons off school grounds and surroundings and more assistance for mental health. They voted for a Catholic president and President Biden. Morals, values, and beliefs are taught at home and practiced in public. How sad to believe one religion is superior to the others. Huh? What does this have to do with the left or with Biden? The left voted for Biden because he wasn't Trump. Exactly. You are correct. What if someone wants to wish upon a star instead? It has about the same outcome. If you're going to count the hits, make sure you count the misses. Prayer is a logical fallacy. A moment of silence to use for prayer or meditation or nothing, whatever the student or staff chooses to do, religion cannot be forced upon anybody. Moment of silence. Biblical truths, when the Bible itself is full of contradictions, hypocrisies, and blatantly false assertions that may have been disproven by science. The Bible is a claim. It isn't the actual or factual evidence. The Bible is an anthology of fables and parables of 66 books written by anonymous authors over the course of 2,000 years. The texts were selected, edited, and translated and rewritten to one form, one book. Maybe he should look in the mirror and keep observing his marriage/divorce decree. Stop forcing religion onto the kids. Take them to church for that. Or have them go to whatever private school that does that, not in public schools. I didn't mean to follow this person. Sorry, I'll follow you. Ching! Where was I? Or have them go to whatever private school that does that, not in public schools. Well, they do say in the Pledge of Allegiance, one nation under God. Yes, you're right. We should just stick to forcing the LGBTQ ideology. If they can have explicit sexual books in schools with transsexuals reading by pedophiles, along with teachers exposing their sexual preferences and pushing other ideologies, of course we can place prayer back in school as it was before. Is this sarcasm? Asking for a friend? No. You're not Brenda, but can you provide examples? No, ask her. Open prayer isn't the way to go. Prayer should be offered for those who want to participate and not forced on anyone, just like it should be done in the quiet of your heart. The GOP thinks this is a win and the Dems will die looking like they don't support God. More GOP gains for stupid prizes. At least the kids will be free to pray before being shot. Priorities. What the hell is going on? All of the crap to enforce? How about you fund our public schools? Pay our teachers? Screw you, Wheels. Praise be to Allah. But keeping shooters off school campuses would be better. Hilarious. It was always the worst. People that want others to get closer to God. The interesting thing about this, ladies and gentlemen, was that, again, our platform is designed in a way to be a place where individuals could come and speak their minds. Again, we can agree to disagree. We all come from different walks of life and different beliefs and have different religious backgrounds. Is it wrong for an individual to want students to have a time to reflect? Some person made a good point and said, hey, maybe this could be a time to meditate. Ask your student, ask your child, ask your grandchild the rigors of school. And you might laugh and say, bro, it's school. It wasn't that hard. But again, we're dealing with students, with young teenagers that are going through a lot in their young lives. Hormones are probably going crazy. They're being affected by so many things, relationships, hormones, puberty. And then when you talk to an individual that has, I don't know, maybe 8 periods in middle school, I think when I was in high school, I think it was 4 periods and a lunch. These students are probably stressed out. Oh God, I got 7 classes, 8 classes. I got so much homework. Maybe 15 minutes would be good. Maybe 20 minutes to meditate would be good. And again, according to this press release, this can only be done with the consent of the parent. This isn't going to be forced on anyone, according to the press release. Maybe this could be a good way for the child just to take a nap. People have always encouraged me to meditate. People have always told me and said, hey, whenever you're going through something, take some time. Do some yoga. Yoga is a way for you to work on your breathing. It helps you meditate. It helps you relax. Many people attribute yoga, physical activities to releasing dopamines, to having possibly a clearer understanding of life and of trying to seize the day. Maybe this hour of prayer, this 5, 10, 20 minutes, this allocated time that the state of Texas encourages the school districts to adopt, maybe they will. Maybe they will benefit from it. And again, I'm not here to tell you that this religion is better than the other. I'm not here to say that they should read the Quran, they should read the Bible, they should read this, they should read that. I shouldn't. And I never will. What I will encourage is for them to meditate. Meditation does have its benefits. Maybe you or someone that you know enjoys doing Zumba. And I know what you're saying, Frankie, Zumba and prayer, really? Hey, they are giving the student time to reflect. I believe this is good. What do you think? Again, many people are saying, "Oh, this is bad." You know, Ken Paxton, is doing this, and he's the worst person to recommend this because he cheated on his wife. He's going through a divorce, and he should focus on his extramarital affairs. Da 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 da. But when we study the Bible, who is the people that are seeking God? Who is the people that Jesus went to? In my mind, I think of Rab la Ramera. From my understanding, Rab la Ramera was a prostitute, was a woman that was shamed in her village, that was shamed in her country, in her city. Jesus went to her. People are probably like, what the heck is happening? What are you doing? Do you know who she is? People with leprosy, with a very serious illness, would go to Jesus. And they would say, help me, fix me, clean me. Also, a very important character in the Bible is Saul of Tarsus, who you probably know as the Apostle Paul. Saulo de Tarso y el Apóstol Pablo. The Apostle Paul, ladies and gentlemen, if you believe in Christianity, if you believe in the Bible, it is because of Apostle Paul that we, the Gentiles, we that are not Jews, that don't come from Judea, it is through the Apostle Paul that we, the Gentiles, are able to seek salvation through Christ. Whoa. What are you talking about, Frankie? What do you mean? For those that aren't aware, Jesus, God, always went to the people that were shunned out, the people that nobody wanted. The apostle Paul, at one time, if you didn't know, he persecuted Christians. He made it his mission to them. He was so zealous of his religion that he said, this Jesus of Nazareth is blasphemy. If you believe in Jesus of Nazareth, I will. That is who the Apostle Paul was. He persecuted Christians. He made it his mission to arrest them, to publicly, to cause fear to other Christians, and said, this is your God, this is who you want, this is what's going to happen to each and every one of you. So I understand people saying, well, look at Ken Paxton. He's the worst person to want to, who encourages this. Ken Paxton, of all people, an adulterer, one that can't even have his marital affairs in order. He, of all people, is going to be implementing this. I understand your reservations, your concerns. But when we go back to the Bible, the people with leprosy sought Jesus, sought God. Jesus got close to a prostitute, Rab la Ramera, when other people were saying, well, hey, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that. Jesus, God, appeared and blinded the Apostle Paul. And he says, I am the one that you are following. And ever since that blindness, ladies and gentlemen, he became a believer of Jesus Christ. And he tells others, he said, I was the number one sinner. I am the worst of the worst because I persecuted the believers. I personally. And that to me is a huge story. To me, that shows that it doesn't matter what you do. You could be charged with murder. You could be charged with the most heinous crimes on this earth. But if you recognize that you're wrong, that you admit your faults, when you get baptized and say, I believe that Jesus is the Son of Christ, and not only that, but you turn your life around and do a 180, that to me is very powerful. Because Saulo de Tarso, who became el Apóstol Pablo, he is the biggest story. And again, us humans, we sin every day. We sin whenever we wake up. We think of the worst. But we have that story, ladies and gentlemen, to remind us. There is that story to remind us. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter if you've been shunned out by your community. You can be saved. We live in a world, ladies and gentlemen, that's full of negative, that's full of hate, that's ugly. Those that have children understand what I'm saying. As soon as they're born, there's sickness, there's hunger, there's famine, there's diseases, and then there's death. I'm a big believer. that prayer is good. People may laugh, but it's a good thing to have hope, isn't it? Do you want to live in a world where when we die, it's over? Do what you got to do. Just, it's done. You're dead. It's over. Hope is a good thing, ladies and gentlemen. Living in this world that is very difficult and is very tiring and is very pressing and is very, I want hope. I believe in faith. And faith is very difficult because faith, you have to have it here and you have to have it here. Because faith, unfortunately for us, we can't see the miracles that are registered in the Bible. We can't see Jesus resurrecting the dead. We can't see him curing the blind, him curing the leprosy. We can't see him walking on water. We rely on our faith. I understand why people may say, "Oh, this is bad. You want to enforce this. This should be done at home. This should be done at a church." Martinez, it could only help. No? When we think about it, and let's be real. Look at the music that's out there. Look at the content that your child watches. Look at the games that he's playing. They're playing. What is it? It's death. It's destruction. It's weapons. It's these type of, in my opinion, these types of entertainment condone assaults, robberies. The music, look at the rappers that we hear. Now I understand why my grandfather played nothing but the Beatles and the Beach Boys. And to me, ladies and gentlemen, correct me if I'm wrong, chat. To me, we can't compare the music from back in the day to today. The music back in the day was about love. Was about what? It was nothing but hope. It was nothing but happiness. Like, hey, I love you, and hey, you know. Now, what is it? Now it's all about sex and drugs and rock and roll, baby. I understand why people are hesitant about this. And they have every reason to do so, to feel this way. But in recent years, ladies and gentlemen, the question of whether public schools in Texas should encourage prayer and display the Ten Commandments has been something that has been discussed. What I'm here to tell you is it could only help. And this has caused and reignited a nationwide debate over religion in public spaces. Advocates will argue that these practices instill moral values. They reflect the cultural heritage of many Americans. Those people that are opposed to this, they say that it raises concerns about religious freedoms, inclusivity, and the constitutional separation of church and state. Our program today explores the pros and the cons of promoting prayer and displaying the 10 Commandments in Texas public schools. And look, we want to be real. We don't want to tend on one side. At the end of the day, I'm posting your comments. People don't agree with me, and that's okay. I encourage that. We live in a democratic society, ladies and gentlemen, where your voice is just as important as mine. We can agree to disagree. There's nothing wrong with that. Gamboa says that prayer in the classroom is an illegal attempt to control the children. Leave those kids alone. All in all, it's just another brick in the wall. Hey, teacher, leave those kids alone. Have we seen the demise of respect, Gamboa? Have we seen a decline in moral characters in the classroom? I would dare say yes. Calmate, Taliban. I need to shave. Calmate, Taliban. I would make the argument that there's no more respect for teachers. There's no more respect for authority. There's no more respect for our elders. Why? Because of everything that we consume. And look, the Western world probably has contributed a lot to this, right? Pornography, sex, drugs, partying. That's celebrated. And this is what the youth feed off of. This is what they watch. This is what they listen to. So I understand why people are saying, hey, leave them alone. But when we talk about the 10 Commandments, ladies and gentlemen, this provides a foundational moral code that can potentially influence positively a student's behavior. Prayer in school, it can promote values such as being grateful, such as humility, compassion, and one that I would dare argue that we all suffer from, self-discipline. Many people who support this initiative that is law now in the state of Texas starting September the 1st, many advocates believe that these practices can lead to a better student conduct, that it can prevent fewer disciplinary issues. It could help. Again, many people are saying, oh, prayer, oh, it's bad. No. Remember, this cannot be done without the consent of the parent. I don't believe we're trying to control nobody. We're giving people options. We spoke about on, Wednesday? We spoke on Monday about PUB. We spoke about how we as a community, as a society, were not given the option of whether we wanted to be part of a recycling program. We were not given that option. We were told, you are going to pay $5 to $6 for this red recycling bin. No ifs, ands, or buts. I have a big issue with mandates by the government. A big issue. I prefer options for my community. Again, are there people out there that recycle, that are green, that want to promote a clean Mother Earth? Yes, absolutely. And we encourage people to do so. We need to take care of Mother Earth. As we need to do our part. We can talk about SpaceX and the carbons and the nitrates and the this and the that and the... We can talk about all that. But one of the arguments, ladies and gentlemen, that I have made, and I'll continue to do so, and I'll continue to be vocal about, is having options in life. Having options in life, ladies and gentlemen, is a good thing. Maybe your child won't pray. Maybe you say, you know what? I'm atheist. I don't believe in anything. I believe when we die, that's it. I respect that. That's your belief. But maybe that allocated time, your child could sleep. Maybe he could meditate. Maybe he could use that time to reflect. And how the famous Bella Unicorn says, chill, chill, chill. Bella. This isn't designed in a way to control people, in my opinion. This isn't designed in a way to enforce a certain religion. We could look at this from a different angle. And that's the way we should analyze things. How can we use this to my child's benefit? The quick response for people is say, no, they want to control. They want to impose religion. Turn it around to your child's benefit. You're telling me that the school district will be allocating, 5-10 minutes out of a day so a child can relax. Others who would like, they could pray, but maybe your child can take a little siesta, little nap. Wouldn't hurt. Maybe you could stretch. You know the importance of stretching, ladies and gentlemen? The older we get, we wake up, just to go to the restroom, you go, That's what I want my community to realize. We always have to look at something and turn it into a positive. I understand your frustration. I understand your resentment. I understand you being reluctant to say, hey, we don't need religion in the classroom. We don't need that. But again, let's turn this away in a way that benefits your child. Maybe your child is not going to pray. Maybe your child could lay down. Maybe your child could stretch. Maybe your child could meditate. Maybe your child is into yoga. I know young teenagers, that's the new cool thing. Growing up, I always thought that was like a fresa thing. Oh God, it's that's a fresa thing, doing yoga. Only the rich moms, only the rich moms do yoga. It's not us Mexicans. Meditation is good. Look, the rigors of life, ladies and gentlemen, we're living in this rat race, and let me tell you, gee, it's stressful. It's who am I to tell you, right? The rigors of life are, oh man, ya no aguanto, por favor. I need help. I need to win the lotto. Now imagine if your child is going through all these hormones of puberty, all this stress of being top 10, top 5, producing good grades and dealing with relationships and trying to manage their young adult life and understanding while their mind is developing. If it's hard for us as adults to get a grip on things, imagine the youth. Why do you think many of them resort to drugs, to alcohol consumption at a young age? I hope I'm wrong, but, we can make the argument that there is a higher, and again, when I was going in school, the only thing that I heard about was, marijuana and cocaine. That's the only thing I heard about. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the youth, Tan bárbaros. They consume hardcore stuff, like hardcore stuff. So maybe this is a good thing. Salina says, unfortunately, most of those people against prayer in school advocate other woke agendas, including allowing other religious celebrations, LGBTQ, trans ideology. They're okay with that. But when it comes to Christianity, prontito sacan separation of church and state. That is true. Just recently, I want to say what this past year in BISD, one of the hot topics was how libraries were having, and I showed it in one of the comments that that was made on our post of Ken Paxton. At BISD here in our city, here in our community, there was an uproar from community members when they learned that there were textbooks, reading books in the library that were very graphic in nature. And now that I think about it, I remember that there was books, I can't think of the name, but that very well recognized, and I remember because of a accelerated reader. Who remembers that reading program? I think they still have it in our school system. I remember a story about a child experiencing or experimenting with heroin and experimenting with hardcore drugs, and how, that her life, how it evolved, and it was nothing but problems and things like that. Well, just this past, I want to say, year or so, there were many concerned parents, even religious leaders, went up and spoke before the school board and said, hey, let's get this type of pornography, let's get this type of literature outside of the libraries. Let them, read appropriate age textbooks. I'm not sure if y'all remember about that, but this happened here in the city of Brownsville, where there was textbooks that were illicit, that were, borderline graphic. There have been people that have argued and stated, hey, there has been this wanting to indoctrinate children of sexual preferences. There have been teachers that are waving the LGBTQ flag. And look, nothing but love and respect for people of sexual preferences. Who you love, who you make out with, who you have intercourse with. That's great. But people do have an issue whenever they're trying to implement that ideology to the children. And people might say, Toker, well, isn't that the same thing? Aren't you trying to indoctrinate prayer on my child? No, because at the end of the day, this is an option. The parent has to give parental consent. That is the big difference. Salina says, hey, people who oppose the prayer, they had no arguments for the LGBTQ ideologies being taught in the classrooms. Again, whatever people do in their private time, that's on them. I have an issue whenever we try to indoctrinate children of beliefs. Let them get to an age of where they know right from wrong. And what age is that? I guess by law it's what, 18 here in the state of Texas? Let them get to that age, and if they want to, identify as a man, as a woman, wants to focus on pronouns, wants to do this, wants to do that, have a sex change, as long as they're adults, hey, I respect that. But there are people that have issues with the LGBTQ community trying to indoctrinate past their ideology onto children. Hernandez says, but we aren't. We are already being controlled with this implementations. Salinas goes on to say, let's bring corporal punishment back. I only went once to the principal's office and never again. It taught me a lesson. You knew if I do this again. Again, I remember when I was in, I don't know, I went to Perez Elementary, and I remember that there was a Principal Kennison, and he was feared. But I think once I started going, they slowly started getting rid of the paddle. Maybe that was good. Maybe that was good for the schools, good for the classroom. It taught discipline, because if you weren't disciplined, you were going to get it. Gamboa says, Obama should have never lit the Capitol in rainbow colors. So why don't we ask those against the Ten Commandments, which one of their brothers bothers them the most? Which of they don't approve of? Let them stand by a window and see if lightning doesn't strike. Now, the Ten Commandments that Salinas is talking about, it does have a significant influence on American legal and cultural traditions. Encouraging their display in schools, advocates say, it could help students understand the historical context of United States laws and moral frameworks. Prayer in the schools, which are going to be voluntary, it can be seen as an acknowledgement of the religious heritage of many communities in the state of Texas. Now, some argue that prohibiting prayer or religion, it does display and infringes on students' First Amendment right to free speech, freedom of speech, and the free exercise of religion. Allowing these expressions, it can possibly foster a more open and accepting environment for religious students, as long as the participation, again, is voluntary, as long as no one is being forced, as long as it is non-coercive. In many areas of Texas, religion plays a central role in people's lives within our community. Encouraging prayer and religious beliefs, it can reflect the values of the majority and increase local support for public schools. Maybe it could bring people together among students who share the same belief. Now, again, there are people that make the argument and say, hey, I don't want my child doing that. Again, according to the press release by Ken Paxton, this will be voluntary with parental consent. Maybe they can get on their phone. Well, no, because the school district implemented there's also a law that the students can have a phone. Again, we want to focus on their mental health. And now you're saying, oh, so you're saying that prayer is going to help their mental health? Again, meditate, relax, chill. Maybe they can take a gummy for I, man. Ching. Now, again, those people that are against this argue that the school-sponsored prayer or displaying of religious texts such as the Ten Commandments in public schools, it blurs the line between church and state. The established cause of the First Amendment prohibits government institutions from endorsing or promoting any specific religion, which public schools are legally required to follow. This could also be seen as exclusion and discrimination, possibly, because encouraging prayer or religious displays, it could possibly alienate students from minority beliefs or those who aren't religious. They could possibly lead into peer pressure. They could be marginalized or even possibly bullied who do not participate. It could possibly create a divisive environment within the school. The schools, they can promote religious practices. They risk lawsuits that can lead to costly legal battles. And the courts, ladies and gentlemen, they have often ruled against school-sponsored prayer and religious displays, citing constitutional concern. These legal challenges, it can divert funds and attention away from academic priority, which is number one. Another thing that individuals argue is that it affects the educational focus. That public schools, they should focus just on education, not religious instruction. That the time spent on religious activities could detract from the child's academia, their academics. It could distract from their teachers' learning, their learning instruction. And the teachers and administrators, maybe they may not be equipped to navigate the complexities of religious diversity in a respectful and lawful way. We don't know what to do, how to handle this, many people might say. Maybe Eddie Trevino and De Las Chanclas should look into the Ten Commandments. We should all look into the Ten Commandments. What LGBT ideology? Define ideology. Many people are very protective of their children. Many people don't want teachers. They don't want library books to be shown to them. Again, I think it's the job of every parent, correct me if I'm wrong, chat, it is the job and priority, number one priority of every parent to protect the innocence of the child as much as possible. Why? Why do you say this? Because again, we know the rigors of life. We know the realities of life, and it's not pretty. This world, ladies and gentlemen, is ugly. This world is evil. Day in and day out, we are closer to our maker. Our body starts failing us. Our mind starts losing it the older we get. And every parent, they have this idea that I want my child to be innocent. I want to preserve that innocence. What happened? Again, I'm going to throw another Bible lesson at you. What happened once Adam and Eve disobeyed God when they said, do not eat from the fruit? What happened to them? Shortly after, they realized, oh my goodness, I'm naked. Oh my goodness, I need to cover myself. Before that sin, they didn't know. They weren't aware. They were still innocent. That is, correct me if I'm wrong, that is a parent's goal in life, to preserve the innocence of a child as much as possible, because we know the rigors of life. We know the realities of life. This world's ugly. This world's cruel. This world does not forgive. And if we can maintain their innocence as long as possible, that is what I want. That is my understanding. That is why parents are opposed to having this LGBTQ being taught, being forced on children. Let them grow up. Let them be kids. And if it comes to a point when they are in adulthood, when they come to an age in where they are mentally capable of understanding what they're about to do, so be it. People may not agree with their decision, but at the end of the day, they're adults. They're young adults. I think that's what, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's what parents want to avoid. They want to avoid their child being indoctrinated with this type of belief. Again, if they reach an age to where they feel as if they identify as the opposite sex, they want to have a sex change, they want to be called with pronouns, more power to them. But let's preserve the innocence of children as much as possible. The question, ladies and gentlemen, of whether Texas schools should encourage prayer and display the Ten Commandments is a deeply polarizing issue. If you haven't noticed already, it's an issue that many parents are weary of. Many people are saying, I want this for my child. I want an allocated time for them to reflect, to pray, to meditate, to gather their thoughts, to be ready for the rigors of life. While this is a polarizing issue that touches on legal, cultural, moral, and educational concerns, there are also arguments, ladies and gentlemen, in favor of promoting more moral values and reflecting on community traditions. There are also significant risks related to inclusivity, legal boundaries, and constitutional protections. Ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, any policy on this matter must carefully balance the rights of all students, religious and non-religious alike, while upholding the principles of the United States Constitution. How do you feel in this matter, ladies and gentlemen? Is it a good thing that Texas implemented a law that brings back prayer, the option? Do you like that option that the state is going to give, where it's going to give your child the opportunity to pray, to meditate, to reflect, to take a simple nap? How do you feel in this? Ultimately, you as a parent, you will decide yes or no, I want my child to do this. Parental consent is required. This isn't going to be forced on nobody. Damn, that's a deeper issue. This has been an issue that has been plaguing that area all the way till biblical times. Many people are very zealous of the land that they say God promised them. I don't support genocide. I don't support war. That is the main reason why I didn't support the Democratic administration this past election. Well, one of the reasons why I was opposed to the Ukrainian war. I want peace. I want love. I want that to spearhead everything. I think hearing and seeing children not be given a proper life, for them to live in famine, for them to live in fear, for them to live in the conditions that they're in is very sad. I don't agree with genocide. I don't agree with war. I understand that people have conflicting understandings or believe that God promised them the land and not the Jews, Palestine, and Judea. I want peace. I want love to reign. I understand why people are possibly in uproar. I understand people's beliefs of not believing in a higher being, and we respect that. I don't want you to misconstrue today's program. I will never, ever bash people on their religion, on their sexual preference, on their goals in life. That's not my job. My job is to talk about important issues that are affecting your household, your community, our community. That is why I felt today was very appropriate, because this just became into law. The school district at BISD will have 6 months. The board members will have 6 months to adopt a policy that will give students the option, once given parental consent, given the option for them to allocate time for prayer, for meditation. Maybe that could bring them peace. Maybe that could bring them some sort of tranquility. And I understand that people think that this is an indoctrination. Oh, you're forcing. What I want my people to do is to look at the positive in life. Look at the positive in this situation. That's what I try to do with everything that happens to my life. Again, I'm not perfect. I continue to make errors in life, and I try my best to learn from my mistakes and promise to never do that again. But everything that happens to me, I always try to spin it and say, how am I going to take a negative into a positive? That's what I want to do for my community. I want to help eliminate the negative and turn it into a positive. And I think we can do that with this very important issue. Many people have criticized our program and said, oh, you don't respect people's beliefs, people's sexual preference. That is not true. I understand that you may not believe in the power of prayer, and that's okay. Many of us do. I am aware that many people do not believe in a higher being. They think that once we die, it's over. That's okay. There are other people out there that have hope. That their faith is guided by their beliefs, that one day they will not suffer, that one day we will meet our Maker. If we live a just life, if we submit to a God, to a higher being, and live life according to his teachings, that one day we can be free from the rigors of life. This world is so full of sickness, full of hate, full of tension, full of animosity. Whenever someone passes away, we always say we want them to be at peace. In my opinion, religion is good. Religion gives us hope. People may not agree with me. That's okay. We can agree to disagree. But at the end of the day, we all want the very best for our loved ones. We all want the very best for our students at the school district. Do not look at this as something negative. Do not look at this as somebody forcing your child. Spin it. Make it into a positive. Maybe your child will take a break. That is my message to my community. Ladies and gentlemen, Texas law is official. Beginning September the 1st, the Ten Commandments will be displayed in the classrooms. It will be a requirement. Supporters argue that the Ten Commandments and teachings of Christianity are generally are core to the United States history. And this is a message that has resurged in recent years as part of a broader national movement that considers the idea of church and state separation a myth. Have you had this discussion with your child? Will you sign off? Will you give parental consent for your child to have allocated time to reflect on life? This could be a good thing for your child. Don't look at this in a bad way. Look at the positive in this. Your child's going to have time to reflect. Your child is going to have time to relax, to meditate, to be at peace. Maybe a moment of silence. Maybe a moment of silence. Ladies and gentlemen, is it a good thing to bring back prayer? Is it a good thing for the Ten Commandments to be displayed in schools throughout the state of Texas? How do you feel, Brownsville? Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel titled Frankie Olivo TV. I will try my best to come on before you and talk about the very important issues that are affecting our local community. We have shed light on injustices, and we have allowed for this platform to be that of the voice of the people. We will continue to do so as long as you let me, Brownsville. And for that, I am forever grateful to each and every one of you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Good Morning Brownsville, and my name is Frankie Olivo. Peace!